Thank you for staying with Daybreak. The State of the Nation discussion is on, and my guests are with me: Honorable Dan Manzo, Senator for Makueni; Honorable Professor Tom Ojienda, Senator for Kisumu; Honorable Hilary Sigei, Senator for Bomet; and Honorable Eddie Oketch, Senator for Migori. Gentlemen, let's talk about the NGCDF now. It's been a debate around the precincts of Parliament for quite some time. It's for your colleagues, the members of Parliament or the National Assembly. But Honorable Manzo, I'll start with you on this. Should this remain with the National Assembly members or not? The NGCDF.
I want to say that I'm lucky in this team. I've been to the National Assembly, and you know, NGCDF or just CDF is the only fund which serves the country, and you can see the results. And if the structure it has is left to be, if nobody interferes with the CDF, that is, if a member of Parliament doesn't interfere with the CDF, it is so successful. And although it's not a lot of money, it's very effective handling national government issues, like dealing with the schools, security installations, like the chief's offices and the police stations. What happens is that, and I think that's how all the government funds should be applied. The member of Parliament oversights. And the model I used to have, I used to let the community elect, you know, in every village, the people are going to sit in committees which will deliberate on the funds for projects in that area. And we'll even do public participation. So when the people elect, then what happens if you are, for example, you are doing a classroom in a school, then you will give this money to the school in form of a check. And then the work of member of Parliament, first of all, is to make sure there is equal distribution. And then also make sure that the people, what they have decided, you oversize that to be implemented. And then they will now, they will either get a local fundi to do the classroom or get a local contractor. So it becomes very local. It helps the local people. And then if you distribute it fairly, it really works. And it is the same team and the recommendation by teachers who will tell you the poorest child or the child who have no school fees. And the member of Parliament will make sure that child doesn't leave school, it's not sent away. As soon as the money comes, like they were pushing for it yesterday, then you are going to give checks and make sure that particular child, especially orphans, you will begin with orphans, first priority. There will be a single parents without an opportunity to educate the children, and also where two parents are, and those two parents are not able completely. And then you'll have an emergency kitty in case, you know, a disaster happens in a family. A parent dies or somebody is in hospital for a long time and eventually leaves, and the children are not been, you know, assessed whether they will benefit CDF. And therefore, CDF really, if a member of Parliament doesn't touch it, is very effective. And for members of Parliament who touch it, or members of National Assembly who touch it, wananchi watch you. You will have a very difficult time being re-elected. And therefore, to me, it's all that the law has a problem with CDF. It is, if you removed it, then I don't know who will do that job. National government is completely unable. You know, government structures, Ministry of Education, for example, they have projects, but they are totally mismanaged, or they give monies and then the money doesn't show up, and then you have classrooms hanging there forever. But what is just 1 million shillings? That's a lot of work, you know, in a village. And I think CDF, we should look at a way of making it constitutional, because it has a constitutionalism challenge, but it is a very effective way of developing and reaching the grassroots. I wish the county governments could apply the same structure to work very well.
Prof, should the NGCDF remain with the members of the National Assembly or not?
Trevor, NCGDF, or CDF as my dear friend Manzo has referred to, has a structural and constitutional problem. The infrastructure of CDF must find itself within the framework or the architecture of the Constitution. And since the structure flies in the face of Articles 174, 175, which talks about devolution and creates the two levels of government, Articles 201 and 203 of the Constitution, which talk about how funds are allocated and appropriated, and Articles 216 and 218 of the Constitution that talks about appropriation through Parliament. The CDF law is unconstitutional. And in spite of the amendment that members of Parliament purported to make in 2022 and 2023, it remains and is unconstitutional. And that is why the three-judge bench in petition number 178 of 2016 not only struck it down, but has given some opportunity to members of Parliament to make it constitutional. How is it made constitutional, Trevor? It is made constitutional by assigning it, or by ensuring that we amend the Constitution to embed CDF to the levels where it should be. And the proper level where CDF should be is in the county government. Why? Because constituencies are in the county government. And I'll tell you this. For instance, let me take Kisumu County, which has 8 constituencies. If CDF is available to members of Parliament, it means the governor of Kisumu County should run CDF or an equivalent amount that is run by members of Parliament should be channeled to the county government, and then a framework found to run that government. Remember, Trevor, under Article 195 of the Constitution, the role of members of Parliament, and that's really 195 and 196, legislation, oversight and representation. And that is the role that members must keep. Even though members of Parliament, and my learned friend Manzo said that he was a member of the National Assembly, tried to distance themselves through creating committees to oversight CDF, they were still in control, because this CDF was still controlled or was largely oversighted by members of Parliament. And I think in that respect, therefore, CDF remains and is unconstitutional. At the marriage of the bodyguard of Raila Amolo Odinga, the Right Honourable Raila Amolo Odinga referred to this question, I think brought the controversy on whether or not the Constitution should be amended to embed CDF to the national level, because if members of Parliament are to have any role, CDF will either go back to the national government and controlled by the central government, national government, or to the counties. And MPs will and must lose control over CDF so that they perform the role that they're elected to perform.
Will and must. Okay.
Must. Yeah. And I think the problem, of course, that membership or election to Parliament will be very unattractive.
Yeah.
And I think this is the period I'm looking forward to, that we need to see a period when members of Parliament had no CDF. If you want to help your people, do it through representing them well in Parliament, do it through oversight, do it through proper legislation, but not through using a kitty to go to the villages and harass people. I do not think, and I don't agree with Mr. Manzo, with Senator Manzo, that CDF, that every member of Parliament has performed a noble, there was a noble intention with CDF to devolve money. Now we have devolved units created by the Constitution. Why do we need to replicate that through CDF again? We also have, for instance, the road, now we have another fight around the RMLF. The levy, and who should run the levy. And it is obvious, Trevor, that let us ensure that we house all these funds at the proper level, which is the county government. Remember, counties are crying about funds, yet we still, at the national level, appropriate funds to members of Parliament to do development at the national, at the county level. Who then oversights these funds? It is a big problem, because Parliament should oversight the use of funds at the county level. And here we have members of Parliament having their hand in the cookie jar. How do you deal with that confusion? We must stop this, Trevor, and I agree with the Right Honourable Prime Minister Raila Odinga that this is the time when members of Parliament must also rise up and be counted and stop and support a bill that not even support a bill. In June 2026, CDF ceases to exist.
Okay.
That is it.
All right.
Let us find ways of ensuring that our counties are strengthened.
Yeah.
Let us channel this money to counties so that governors can use this. And it's not a question that governors, because what I hear people say is that governors are not accountable and that governors will spend the money for other purposes. No, let us put governors to account. Let us ensure they deliver for the people who elected them.
Okay, now that you referred to the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga, this is what he actually had to say in regards to this conversation. We're talking about the Road Maintenance Levy Fund and also the CDF. This was his remarks.
Funds to the counties. And as I was told the MPs, and I disagree. CDF, national government, give that CDF national government, but to the counties, not the MPs. Fuel levy. Members of Parliament, Your Excellency, have no business constructing roads. The role of members of Parliament is clearly stated. Representation, legislation, and oversight. How do you oversight when you yourself are actually implementing? Those funds should go to the counties. And if the governors mess up with those things, then we deal with the governors themselves. But they don't tie the hands of governors. And then MPs go and say, mimi ndio nimejenga barabara hii, mimi nimejenga barabara hii, nimejenga shule hii, niko hospitali hii, governor hajafanya chochote. Because the governor has not been given the money. Give the money to the governors. Let the devolution work properly. And that's why I say that if they don't do it, we'll make it an election subject. Campaign properly against the members of Parliament. So that members of Parliament should allow governors to do their work and then do oversight, which is your constitutional duty.
Yes. To Trevor, that's the point. The Road Maintenance Fund, Levy Fund Act, RMLF Act of 1993, has created a framework, and it is that framework that we're fighting with, because at Section 2 of the Kenya Roads Board Act, we have the framework that has brought this fight, that members of Parliament want to make roads. Then, when campaigns start, they say that they are the ones who made the road, yet we know very well that their role, as enshrined under Article 195, legislation, oversight, and representation, not construction of roads. That is to say, let them leave the work that belongs to governors to governors. If they want to do any project, let them use their money to do that project and come back to the people and tell the people that I did this out of the funds, my own funds, not out of national funds, that is now disguised as personal funds.
Sigei, do you agree with Prof and Raila on this?
Trevor,
Did you say Prof and Raila?
First of all...
Okay, yes.
There are many professors here. There are many babas as well around in the house. If it fits well for Prof, that's it. Now, I wanted to say something. Listening to Prof, he has argued this thing in the context of the decision of the courts on the constitutionality or otherwise of NGCDF. That I do not dispute. Listening to Manzo, he's argued, of course, unfortunately, he's running the narrative that he has been a manager to CDF, and therefore certain projects have had to be done. But NGCDF, the reason as to why the courts declared it unconstitutional is twofold. One, of course, is the creation of confusion, which they said that we are setting up a third level of government from the national, the county, then there's a third one, which is in the context of the implementation of some of these programs and also the allocation of that fund to a representative of the people in the name of an MP. That is one reason why the courts declared it unconstitutional. Secondly, and more importantly, is the fact that they said members of Parliament ordinarily are supposed to be representatives of the people. They are not supposed to be administrators of projects and development of infrastructure and related utilization of CDF. Well, granted, that is a justification which I also agree, that you cannot, on the one hand, be a representative of the people, at the same time you're an administrator of resources managing the people. And secondly, that creation of confusion. But, bold but, and that is where now I disagree with Professor Tom here. When you look at what CDF has done from across the country, and when we become also honest, it is something that we would only align its infrastructure with the Constitution by what the NADCO report and committee agreed, which was a product of public participation. They went around the country. It had membership across the aisles in the constitutional formation, political formation. And they said, look, we agree that the Constitution has created these two levels of government, and therefore CDF should not be among the funds which members of parliament should be administering. But the resolution, which I agree with the Kenyans who gave their recommendations to the committee then, was that let us embed this fund in the Constitution. And therefore, the proposal that we amend Article 204 of the Constitution was born and approved by so many Kenyans, including members of their National Assembly and members of the Senate, because the NADCO report has been approved. It therefore means objectively CDF or NGCDF and GAF, which was another fund, which we said we should embed it in the Constitution, has got its benefits. If we were to look at it in the context of what Professor Tom Ojienda has said, we will kill so many projects and we will kill so many dreams of Kenyans who have directly benefited from the CDF. When you look at the infrastructure of the management of this CDF, mostly, and I would dare say mostly, it is, for example, in the aspect on bursary allocation. It is run and managed at the lowest level. The community people sits back and you know, review who has applied, who is entitled. There is some level of fairness. If we equally look at the projects which are done through the CDF, it also has managed to become as fair as possible, because a constituency is, you know, we're looking at 290 constituencies. The political aspect aside, because
but Trevor, counties can do that.
County government has got its resources. Can do that. Tom and I are fighting about devolved corruption, where we are looking at the county governments having been allocated billions of resources. Let me give you an example of my county. I, today, cannot go to Bomet County and give you a comparison of what the CDF has done and the county government has done. It is as black and white. The projects which have been funded, completed, and are already in use by schools, by the security apparatus, by the public through the roads, are those which were done by members of parliament. Whatever was to have been implemented by the county government in terms of the resources allocated to them, which is actually in billions of shillings, Trevor, zero. Reason being, the aspect on administration and management of CDF is completely different from how the county government resources have been managed. Okay. Resources can be seen, or rather product of resources on CDF can be seen, but not on devolved funds. Okay. And therefore, this aspect on RMLF, though I, on the one hand, would agree with the argument that Professor Tom Ojienda has given us as to the structure, the infrastructure, and the, you know, legality of NGCDF, that I do not dispute. But then, let us look at the reason why these funds are made available to serve the people of Kenya.
Trevor, if he has a bad governor, if my lion friend has a bad governor, let him say, we have, not every county has the same problem. If you have a bad governor, that's your problem. But let us just look at the law and not about your governor who is not doing anything. Yeah.
So, Eddie, should this remain with the members of Parliament and the National Assembly?
Trevor, I remember when we were going on break, you cut me something that I was saying that is very serious, and I don't want it to slip. It's a very serious thing, and I've said a number of times here, Trevor, that all Kenyans have a duty to make our country better and to contribute, whether in the private sector. Elected members have got their duty. You in the private sector have got your duty. And I think that the media, which is what I was trying to prosecute on the issue of the standard, the media has got its rightful position in shaping this country. And Trevor, some of us are consumers of media. From the time we were writing in school to the time that we came into politics. I remember that when I was young, there was a gentleman used to be called Whispers. Otherwise known Waume Mtai. He was one of the best, satirical writers in I think it was Sunday Nation. That was the only thing I would turn to Standard Nation and to the Sunday Nation. And then after that, I would spend my entire time reading the Standard, because Standard was a place for hope. Standard was a place for bringing us to speed with what's happening in the country. And I think that where we find ourselves today, the Standard and Royal Media.
He was in opposition.
Well, just, let me just organize my thoughts and then prosecute. Don't be cantankerous. So the Standard and Royal Media, during the entire time that I've read about the history of our country, were the people who used to stand against dark days of even Moi time. So therefore, we should not be in a country where if the Standard or Royal Media or any media is against or supporting any government, then they are gagged to be financially starved. I don't think we should ever be in that kind of situation. And therefore I was prosecuting a serious matter that we don't want to see in this country, where a government makes it difficult for media to get chance to advertise, because the government is cannibalizing those advertisements in media. Because when the government does that, it takes a lot of opportunities out of the hand of media. And that is what I'm seeing happening to Standard. That's what I'm seeing happening to other media houses. And it's wrong, and we must call it for what it is. But that said so, the media must also not miss opportunities that is happening in the country every day, that where there's dark and gloom, they must highlight those. But where there's also very good opportunities, like today, if you look at what Gen Zs are doing online, the media is missing it. I wish the Standard could even focus on that. Gen Zs are doing a lot of work in terms of gig economy that is growing so fast, and they're making money on that we must also bring to power. So I wasn't criticizing Standard for the sake of criticizing because of the headline, but I'm saying there is a battle that is silent that I'm seeing, that I have to be bold enough as a member of Parliament and say the government must give the media its rightful place, and the media, whether they support or don't support the government of the day, must continue to have that space where they can be able to thrive. That's something I wanted to really say, because it's very important to me, because otherwise then we lose our media houses to regimes that keep on fighting here and there with the media, and we don't want to see that. But that said, Trevor, CDF is bad for the country. There is no any other name that you call it with. And so Senator Ojenda was talking about Article 195 of the Constitution. I think he meant to say Article 95 of the Constitution, because Article 195 is about the role of the Assembly and the powers that the county Assembly is to be specific. But Article 95 of the Constitution is where the role of members of Parliament is clearly stated. Legislation. Go to Parliament and make laws. I think we need to make these things simpler so members of Parliament. Maybe if you say legislation, it looks like a very complex term. Representation. Go to Parliament so that when things are being talked about, resources that are being shared in the country, about the entire country, talk about what is supposed to come to your country, constituency. Yeah. When the country is sharing different resources here and there, when the executive has brought issues that are affecting the entire country, what perspective is affecting your constituents? That's why you are there, to represent them. That any decision that is being made, you are there. not to go and seek for CDF. Then the last one, oversight. After you have given the executive the role to go and implement a number of development projects, check whether they're staying by the book of what you passed. How hard is this to understand? That Raila must come and remind you. I agree with the Raila Amolo Odinga on one thing, that monies that have been devolved from the center of power and been taken, the resources have been taken to the people, to the grassroots. Those money should never come back here. Which is why Raila Amolo Odinga is saying CDF must be kept at the grassroots level where things matter. But they have to be kept within the executive, because it is money that has been given to implement projects. How do you implement projects and then expect to oversight yourself in public funds? Trevor, even today, if you were to make me the president of this country, will you make me the president and then expect me that when it comes to go to answer a question in parliament, I go and I question myself, then I sit again on the side of parliament and say, you know, I think that I was right. That's what members of parliament want to reduce this country to. They must stop CDF, they must give it to governors, and I think that what we should be talking about, and Sige has talked about it, is that we must appreciate that county governments are also extremely corrupt. But the corruption in county government does not become an issue of qualification that we must not give them more funds. We must just harass the ghost of corruption in counties. And I hope that Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga is watching us this moment, that the way he wants to make CDF an issue of the election, which I agree with him 100%, he must also make the corruption in counties an issue of elections, so that we can be able to find a way of dealing with governors who have become rogue in wasting people's money, in misappropriating projects in the counties. Money must get to counties, and those governors who are criminals, who end up stealing our money, who end up wasting our money, they must go to jail. I would want to see Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and his brother, the president of this country,
just say your brother.
Ruto. And also my brother, because he's Kenyan.
Just say it.
Right?
Don't take back.
Let me tell you.
He's taking back.
The two of them must fight governors' corruption the same way they are fighting for them to get the CDF. It must be equal. Because the reason why MPs and other people are against this issue of taking money to counties is simply the issue that counties have become corrupt. And there's a lot of wastage of money, there's a lot of embezzlement. That's not a qualification of not giving the counties money. Okay. The last thing I must say about this, Trevor, the height of this conversation, and I love the fact that Raila Amolo Odinga has brought this issue to the conversation. One thing we must confront with the executive is that in this coming election, as a country, we must cost the functions of government as a function of making budgets. The county functions that have gone to the counties that were under Schedule 4 of the Constitution, do you know that all those functions are not costed? When we're doing budget, we give counties a lump sum amount of money and hoping that the counties are going to budget with that money the way they want. Yet we have got specific functions that have been given to counties. We have got health, we have got water, we have got housing, we have got agriculture. That is not costed at all. So that when counties get these billions of money that my brother Sige is talking about, it is at the discretion of the governor to think of where the money is going to go to, so that he can disturb some functions while making billions out of other functions for themselves. We must be able to cost functions of counties and make sure that that costing is how budget is being made. For instance, Trevor, as I finish, why would a function like health that has been given to national government is mostly to take care of the national referral hospitals and policy making? Yet, if you go to our health budget, counties are getting an average of about 500 million every year. But the national government is getting 120 billion. How did you cost that? Did you go and look at the number of facilities that are in Nairobi, like 164 hospital facilities, and know how they run in Nairobi and Coast and other places, and say that we are going to give national government 120 billion based on this costing? or they don't deserve that, they need only 40 billion to run policy and these national referral hospitals, and then the rest must go to the functions in the counties that are supposed to give primary health care. That is costed. This conversation the executive is scared of, and the counties are also scared of, because the governors then will just tell you that, oh, the money we are getting is just for discretionary expenses. We're just paying salaries. Yeah. And then we're remaining with small for development. That conversation must end with this heightened conversation that Raila Amolo Odinga has brought. We go and give counties money on CDF. We must take RMLF to counties and make sure that county roads are maintained the same way national government roads are maintained, and then we must give counties the share that they need for functions. Yeah. But above that, after giving you that, my friend, we must fight corruption in counties. Okay, and this brings you to another conversation here, Manzo, and I'll start with you on this. And let's bring up what Honorable Edwin Sifuna said in a function earlier on whether this broad-based government is working in unison, or are we seeing cracks? Because this is going to be a main agenda of the conversation, because it seems legislators are on one side, senators are on the other, and there seems to be a concerted effort to take this out. But this is what Edwin Sifuna had to say, and there's also Governor James Orengo also spoke, and there was a lot of backlash. Let's listen in.
Wanasema Waswahili, wimbo wa kujidunga hauambiwi pole. Kuna watu kwa serikali yako kazi yao ni kushika handball kila siku. Sasa kama hii drama yote tumeona Nakuru, ati watoto wanakatazwa kufanya mchezo, sijui wanapigwa tear gas, sijui wanafukuzwa. Hiyo ni wimbo wa kujidunga, Mheshimiwa Rais. Wale ambao wanahusika na kufanya kazi yako ikiwa ngumu, lile mnarayo tatu, kwa sababu tunajua kazi yako ni ngumu zaidi.
Wakati unaongea mambo yangu Sifuna, ujue mimi ndio mwanzilishi wa ODM. So unaenda pole pole kidogo.
Manzo, are we seeing cracks in this broad-based government already?
Broad-based government, there's a name President William Ruto had given it earlier. He had said he will not form a monorail of government. Now, the broad-based government, you can only liken it to a monorail or a skunk, because you don't know what it is. It's not constitutional in the first place. Now there must be majority. Whoever wins government forms government. Unless you're telling us William Ruto never won the election. If you win the election and you have majority, you should be able to run the government. But he was unable to run that government. Therefore, he dissolved it without dissolving himself, and formed the monorail he had said he was never going to form. Now, these are the problems of the monorail government, and he has to live with it up to 2027. You can see there is human rights abuses within the broad-based government. You can see, you know what Orengo is talking about also after Sifuna. You must stick to the Constitution, even if there is broad-based government. You must, you give the Bill of Rights its due, and make sure that every Kenyan is protected. Now, it's also, again, through the broad-based government, what Senator Edi say, that there is rampant corruption. Because some of these people, you don't know what to do with them. They are with you, they are in government, they are corrupt, you don't have proper structures to prosecute them, and you are politically surviving. Instead of having a hard-biting government, whereby you have a government which supports human rights and fights corruption, because we must fight corruption to the core. In some discussion, we have our constitution, we must follow it to the letter unless we amend it. We have devolved functions. So a lot of devolved functions remain devolved. You see the issue of education is a national government function. But I think we need to have a way of remaining what CDF was doing devolved. And you must serve people at that level. Unfortunately, when you give the roles to the national government, there are no people as difficult as Kenaha in dealing with. There is no people as difficult as Kura. And that's where biggest corruption takes place, especially Kenaha. You have all these national roles they will never do. And even when some of them are being done, there is a lot of collusion, and you have bogus contractors, even be paid before finishing the work. And even as you go through some of these roads, you find this is a substandard job being done there. But those people are being paid. So we really need to deal with corruption. And that's why, even a simple matter is just a play. You know, if today somebody wants to act kusandikika, if some school chose kusandikika as their book, and you know kusandikika is very political in nature, and is one of the set books we have gone through, and many Kenyans love, and it's the best way to learn Kiswahili, sanifu, very good Swahili. Now, if people were to act kusandikika, you know, then, or a man of the people. So, you know, we must appreciate satire. Political satire was there, you know, during the days of Moi, KJ and all these people, and Nyambane, and nobody jailed them or stopped staging this, and they satirized Moi, and it made Moi even more popular. And the people laughed it, and when they did at carnival or places, the whole place will be full, and Kenyans will go home happy. Yeah. But now what do you have? Kenyans go to watch a play, and then they end up being tear gassed because the play satirized government. So human rights and the constitution must really be followed. Okay. But unfortunately, Ruto, you formed a Mogorel, deal with it. Okay. We are checking you as a people's loyal opposition. Yeah. We will check you to the letter.
Okay. Prof, you heard what Sifuna said, you heard what Borengo said. Are you in government or not?
Trevor, I have been to the mountaintop. And I have looked over and seen where we are going as a country. And Eddie has joined. And now we know that we are all together. Trevor, on the 7th of February 2023, when we first visited State House as a team of 7 members of parliament, we were castigated. We were called names. We were taken to the tribunal, dragged down. Eventually, we were cleared. On 6th of October 2023, President Ruto came to Kabonyo Kanyagwal to launch projects that he had promised, the first set of projects. He had promised Kabonyo Kanyagwal project. He had promised the Koru Soin Dam. He had promised the Moroni Junction Road to Kisumu, Mamboleo Road. Those are the projects that I had pinned my hand to as then a visitor to State House seeking government support of projects. Of course, later Eddie stopped talking to me. He told me I'd joined government. But I told him that one day we will be together. And I'm glad that we've gone full cycle. And this is what we call political hig-haga. It was inappropriate for His Excellency James Orengo and my learned friend Sifuna to speak the way they spoke at the funeral of Oduor. You do not speak to the president like that when he visits and is attending a funeral. That was inappropriate. Number 2, Trevor, and maybe Eddie will correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that we are in government fully. And I said I was in government. I will say today, I will say tomorrow. I will say Ruto will get a second term because that's what I believe in. I do not change. I know that the mongrel is talking about is because Eddie, for instance, chairs the road committee and is the vice chair of CIPIC. So he's doing an oversight committee, but also is chairing a mainstream departmental committee. He chairs the JLAC. So to an extent, these are 2 chairs, and these are 2 vice chairs. Surely what else? By the way, he doesn't chair any committee. This is a member of the opposition. So whenever he speaks, I don't listen much because I know this is an opposition member. Trevor, we are in government. Yeah. And we're in government to stay. In 2027, we'll win the election, and we'll come back again and serve the people of this country. Let us focus on universal health care, improve the affordable housing system that is in frame, ensure that we work on infrastructure for this country. But let us not, and that's why Honorable Sifuna got it wrong. You cannot weaponize children for political gain. And that is why I said the Basic Education Act 2023, the Basic Education Act has to be amended to ensure that plays go through systems and that we have boards that approve all the plays so that we do not have the fiasco that we had in Nakuru, where somehow the play slipped through fingers, and we had a non-educational and non-academic director play right to the end, and was present when the play was supposed to be staged. That was a political, the intention of Malala was purely political. Okay. And we must not have that repeated. Of course, I said that it was wrong to tear gas children. That cannot be supported, but we must manage drama properly.
Okay. It only happens in a Mogoreo government.
The government is working. The government is stable. The government is focused on delivering to the people of Kenya. I heard Manso mention 3 things, and I wanted to discount on them. The aspect that the presidency, that is President William Ruto and his team right now in office, has demystified is the freedom that is allowed people to speak. I may not agree with how Honorable Sifuna, my good learned friend and colleague in the Senate, said in front of the President. Similarly, senior colleague, His Excellency Governor James Orengo. Yeah. But again, we are celebrating the kind of freedom that this government has permitted its supporters, players, and critics to say as much as they would want, because that is a constitutional entitlement. As to the assessment of its impact, is what you've said. We definitely would not have expected such comments to come, especially in a setup where the president is present. But that has been said, it's been criticized, there's a lot of backlash on it, and sometimes politicians go out when they get a platform to say something, say that which is popular. It might have been popular at that moment, and therefore you are celebrated. And by the way, politicians enjoy when they are clapped for and they are, jeered by members. It could have been the intention of those members at that moment, but then it didn't achieve what Honorable Manzo is trying to say, that the government is not working. The government is working. He also spoke about the human rights abuses and rampant corruption and said the president should rather manage his government or dissolve. I mean, we are running a very stable government, and I wish we could focus on the aspects that this government has done prior to the broad-based government and right now. And it cannot be hidden. It's impossible to hide the achievements that we've done in this government. We got into it when the economy was bad. Right now, we have stabilized. We got into it when the dollar was 167. It has been stable for the last 1 year at 128. That is something that Manzo, as a practitioner, as a leader, as a businessman, as a Kenyan, knows, but he does not want to tell Kenyans. We have employed 76,000 Kenyans as teachers on permanent and pensionable. Manzo would not say that. He will not tell Kenyans, because that is something positive. When he speaks about corruption, I am one of those people who have decided to attack corruption head-on, both from my county government up to the national government. And Manzo and I, together with my colleagues in the Senate and National Assembly the other day, passed the conflict of interest bill. It had a lot of challenges in terms of opposition from among players who would want to bring it down. But because there is a solemn decision by the President, William Ruto, and his team to fight corruption, we passed it because we said we need to fight this mongrel called corruption. And that is why I totally agree with Eddie that whoever is corrupt, all governors who've been identified where cases have begun being investigated, they belong to jail. They don't belong elsewhere. They don't belong to the government of President William Ruto. They belong to jail, and that is something that Honorable Manzo would not want to say. Allow me to just say a little bit more, because when we sat back and debated on the conflict of interest bill, it was on the basis of how do we make sure that those who are managing resources for the public become accountable. it is only when you have a working government that you are able to push for and pass such bills. The health sector, Professor Tom has talked about it. The education model, the CBC aspect, despite the challenges, has already been rolled out. We are at least seeing some improvement in it. The funding model, the courts have talked about it. They have pronounced itself. Who is benefiting? Not the corrupt, but the children of those who are unable to pay their fees, of those who are struggling, and those who are able to pay do not get the funding. So let's look at these big achievements and say, as it is, the broad-based government is working. And more importantly, as I close on this argument, Kenya is now stable. Okay. President Moi used to say, Siasambaya, Maisha Mbaya. Okay. Right now, we have a united Kenya. Unfortunately, it's only Manzo and probably a few of his friends who are trying to now struggle to come in. And I'm saying, you know what? William Ruto's government is open.
They're struggling to come in.
We don't want to come in. We are going to form government. We are going,
the government is working.
We are going to form government of the people.
Government of the people is only formed by Raila Amolo Odinga. So don't be delusional.
In Migori, by the way, you had a problem with what Orengo said.
Yes.
What was your concern?
I didn't have a problem with what Orengo said. Yeah. I was very clear that, in fact, your question, Trevor, is not whether we are in government. Our question is that, your question is ODM staying true to itself? Actually, that's the question that I think I'm getting you asking. Because ODM is an ideological party, social democrats, fighting for the right of the people, and as well as trying to get as much opportunity to the people as possible. That's the idea of devolution. When you see me agitated about the issue of governors going to launch a 2 million project with a 10-vehicle convoy in a circumference as small as Migori County or as small as Kajiado County or as small as Kisumu County, I have a problem. When I see that governors are using over 40% of their budget on recurrent, I have a problem. It is a DNA, ideological leaning of ODM people to be able to question what is wrong, but to be able not to miss opportunity for what is in government or without government. This is what ODM is. Trevor, haven't you seen when Raila Amolo Odinga associated with President Ruto, yet Raila Amolo Odinga has questioned everything wrong when it happens despite the relationship? Didn't Raila Amolo Odinga question the issue of abductions and condemn it when it was happening in our glare when they were with the Honorable President Ruto? He questioned. Hasn't John Mbadi, who is the CS for Treasury, questioned the structure of our taxes, for which the private sector cannot be able to thrive, and even sought a public dialogue with the people on the question of taxes? Does this mean that they don't support the broad-based government? 2 minutes ago, haven't I just questioned the issue of leaving the media to be independent and have it supported, while also encouraging the media to be more balanced and to be able to inspire even the younger generation in their headlines? Haven't I questioned that? What do you expect of ODM people? This is what you expect. Sifuna questioned very clearly the grit of the people who work for the president to the extent that they would go and tear gas kids. Yet there are people also in the same ODM who have questioned, including me. Go to my tweet. Why would we allow Malala to go into the school and is not a teacher there, write a play? It passes through all the processes and get qualified to be played when he's not a member of anywhere in the education system. We question what is wrong, Trevor. We are ODM, and we accept what is right. In the event that you're talking about, I was there personally. Oburu Odinga spoke there. His claim was not being paid by the media. He said very well that the country is at a place where everybody must get their equal share of the national cake. Why is it that's something to celebrate? Some ODM members talked about what is wrong in government. Some ODM members talked about what is good in government. And this is what we need by this idea that broad-based government that has been put by President Ruto, as well as Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, must be nurtured, must be supported. For people like Mahanzo, who do not understand what this government is.
It's a mongrel. I know that's a mongrel.
He doesn't understand, because even mongrels don't...
It's unconstitutional.
He has never seen a mongrel in his entire life. It's just a term that he's using. He doesn't know what a mongrel is. But I'm telling him that, Mahanzo, go to the 10-point agenda that President Ruto...
None of them have been followed.
Raila, you are
None of them. None
and
of them is
disappointing when I've seen you as a leader for such a long time. Now I've catch up with you in the Senate and you're heckling me. So just listen so that I can be able to pump some knowledge into your head. My friend, the broad-based government has got very clear 10-point agenda. And if you want to understand the agenda of a broad-based government, which is a government that has been formed after an election, it happens in South Africa. It happens in other countries. You must bring what we call context. Don't confuse the people. The people you're running around calling the people, you want to form the people's government, those people have gone to Uhuru Park and sworn in Raila Amolo Odinga as their president. They have never sworn you or your uncle or your auntie.
I was there swearing him.
You are there, you are among the people.
I did not see you.
So that the son of the people's president can educate you. This is what is happening, my friend. There is a context with which we got here. The president got himself into a problem when he started office. He found himself with a number of political individuals who are fairly not as competent. Not all of them, but most of them are not as competent. But he also inherited, I told you, that people only see 10 politicians, 20 politicians that they know by name. But the entire bureaucracy of government is 1 million people. He inherited 1 million people who had got the worst attitude that any human race can be able to have.
Yeah.
And this reality is confronted with the president. Therefore, he desired a platform where he can be able to correct it, which then he formed this, what he called government, to bring in some talent, some treasure, some people with time to work for government. And in that 10-point agenda, inclusivity is an agenda. Public audit of debt is an agenda, conversation that is going on right now. The issue of sharing resources equally in the entire country is an agenda, including, in some cases, my friend, where those resources had been extremely not shared rightly just a year before election. I sit in transport and roads. Do you know, my friend, that just 3 months to election, there was a qualification of 1,000 kilometers of roads, Trevor, that was qualified the government must do in the entire country. And that's 1,000 kilometers. Therefore, the government was committed, because the government does not run that you stop it when another one comes. It runs in what we call going concern. When you take in government, you must continue what your previous people were working on. Do you know, Trevor, that there was 1,000 roads that was qualified that committed this country to a pending bill of 175 billion?
Where were the roads?
And those roads...
Where were the roads?
The Mau roads alone are the Mau Mau roads alone are 560 kilometers. And I'm not trying to profile a region. This is fact. 1,000 roads in the entire country for 175 billion pending bills, and you have got 1, 2, 3 counties having 560. That didn't bother you, my friend.
That's more than half.
That is more than half. And I can go with you, and you'll find that it's not evenly distributed even in places like Mandera, places like Turkana, places like Marsabit. So what we're saying here is that the president and Raila Amolo Odinga, the second context of the issue of Gen Zs, they have sought a stable and steady government so that everybody can be able to run business in this country and move forward. That is what broad-based is. If you don't understand it, pray for wisdom, my friend.
Let's see what the people are saying. Let's bring up the feedback really quick. There's a lot of feedback coming through. Let's read as many of them as we can. And Trevor Biddy at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Daybreak. Let's bring that up on screen and see what you're saying really briefly and see what's happening there. Sami Masika says Parliament has consistently failed to exercise due diligence during the vetting of nominees. Ironically, many of those they approved have later been exposed by the very appointing authority as clueless and grossly incompetent. MC Ruma says we are witnessing the worst parliament in Kenya's history, one that has reduced itself to a rubber stamp for the executive. They continue to approve nominees despite glaring questions about their suitability. It's clear they no longer represent the interest of the people. Babu Michael says when it comes to government appointments, cabinet positions included, it's all about rewarding friends. These days, it's no secret that vetting processes are mere formalities. Kipyegon says NGCDF should never be managed by members of parliament. It's unconstitutional. The government should consolidate all bursary programs into one central system and work towards making education completely free. MPs have turned NGCDF into a political tool rather than a means to serve the people, the public. Ingenier Lazaro says, big no. County governments have consistently failed to show transparency. We can't blindly trust them with additional funds when they can't even account for previous allocations. That would be like rewarding corruption with more money. Babu says, to me, the NGCDF and GAF and similar funds mean only two things to MPs. One, a source of money to swindle. Two, a tool to boost their re-election bids by competing with governors and other offices. On this one, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is absolutely right. Godi says, our nation is now run by an executive filled with officers hired solely to protect, support and defend the president's thoughts and directives. Even the opposition has become an extension of the executive, a complete betrayal of checks and balances. Gentlemen, we have to leave it there because of time. Thank you so much for making time. That's where we close the State of the Nation. Coming up next is Cooking Tips. Bye for now.
Tell Maanzo Raila once.